Hey everybody, I have the unique honor of having Gregg Bissonette here, who just out of the blue is
called him today. Rick, how rude am I? I'm in Atlanta with Basic Streams, Victor Wooten and Steve Bailey and I. And Victor Wooten gave me your number. I said, man, I want to see if Rick Beato would want to come to our show. And Vic says, yeah, here's his cell. So I call him to invite him to the show. And you invite me.
And I said, come on out.
So cool.
Here we are.
You're
Welcome.
a good man.
Welcome. We've actually been talking, and I just said to Billy, I was like, turn on the camera.
And Billy did, and here we are.
Okay, so what were we just talking about there?
You mentioned that you'd like to interview at the Power Station, and I said that's where we did half of Eat 'em and Smile. The first half of David Lee Roth Band Eat 'em and Smile was at Fantasy Studios, Northern California in Berkeley. And then the second half, Ted Templeman said, now we're going to go to New York. Wow. And we went to Power Station in that big room. So Steve Vai and Billy Sheehan and Dave and I, and we went to Power Station, and you're there a lot.
Okay, so this is interesting. So you work with so many producers because you played on so many records, and you're really like the drummer, the musician's drummer. You played with all the best musicians, like all my favorite guitar players and everything. You're on all the. You're with everybody from Luke to Satch to Gambale to like everybody.
What a blessing!
You play with all the great.
And they're all
players.
Great guys.
They're
like
all
you
great
are.
Guys.
You know, the great guys, the great players are often great guys. I knew you when I met you today. I would feel like I've known you for all the years I've been such a fan of your show, and you are a great guy.
Okay, so I want to ask you, like Ted Templeman. So talk about Ted working in the studio back then. What was that like? Because I never get to ask people about producers.
Ted's a great friend. I got to do a Doobie Brothers album with he and Ross Hogarth. We just talked about Ross with the Brother Johnny Edgar Winter, great album that's out that Ross did. And I met Ted probably my second rehearsal with Dave back in '85, and I said, wow, Ted, man, all the albums you've done. And I started listing them all off. He goes, you know all of us? I go, are you kidding? He said, who was your first gig? And I said, the Maynard Ferguson Big Band with my brother Matt, who's Elton John's bass player for the last 13 years, and they're on the road now. And he said, you played with Maynard? He said, then you could do this Frank Sinatra cover of That's Life. I said, I love That's Life. That's Life. And so Ted was just so cool then. He hired me years later to play on a Bette Midler album, the Doobie Brothers album. He's just a great friend and a great producer.
Okay.
And Jeff Hendrickson was the engineer.
Okay, so when you think back to these records, how much do you remember of them? I mean, you remember what studios you were at?
I remember most of it, you know. I don't drink, I don't do drugs. I just try to, it's hard enough trying to just, in our life, with the people we get to meet and talk to, you just want to embrace it. You want to remember it. So I'm all about trying to keep my memory.
Okay, so all right, so let's talk about making records in the mid-'80s versus making records now. Tell me the difference between recording on tape and recording into Pro Tools or
you heard a lot of this
recording.
And then the guys are cutting the tape.
But that's the time you got to kind of chill out for a second, right?
It was, yeah.
In between takes when you're rewinding.
Absolutely.
I know it was only one take, of course.
Oh, Rick, always one take. Not. But anyway, nowadays, I still do a lot of recording at the major studios in LA. There's Capitol, there's East West, there's United, which used to be like Ocean Way and United Western, and Henson, which used to be A&M, and The Village, and my drum tech, Adam, he's great. My dad was my drum tech for 18 years. He was a jazz drummer in Detroit. My mom played jazz vibes, and then when they moved out to LA, my dad became my tech. So on those, sometimes we use tape, but most of the time it's Pro Tools. But then I also have one of my favorite kits set up at a great studio in Sherman Oaks in the Valley at Woodcliff Studios. And this great engineer and great friend of mine, Frank Rosado, people send us files like crazy. And then I record everything there in a room with Frank, you know, doing it. And then they PayPal or Venmo. And just in case you're watching and you want me to play on your tracks, just send an email to Frank at greggdrums2@gmail.com.
Greg, talk about your teaching stuff that you do too.
Thank you. Well, so I teach through that site too. Anyway, it's not a site, it's an email. greggdrums and the number 2@gmail.com, and just say, hey Frank, can you set me up with lessons with Greg? And we'll do Zoom or FaceTime. Hey Frank, can I have Greg record on my songs? And he does it all. So I do private teaching that way. And I also have a school at the Drum Channel, Don Lombardi and the Drum Channel. It's the Gregg Bissonette Drum School at Drum Channel.
Okay, so talk about, give me like 10 of the most. I know you were just playing my drum kit and everything.
And I love both of your kids. And your daughter, what's her name?
Layla.
Layla, I played on her little bebop kit, man. That was so fun. What a collection, man. I want to spend a couple days here.
Okay, so talk about some of the most influential drum grooves to you that you grew up, that you said, okay, these are things that every drummer should know.
Okay, well, we'll play Name That Tune with the listener. What do you say? And Rick already guessed them all because he's Rick Beata.
What should people learn? Talk
Okay.
about drum fills or
Yeah.
drum grooves. What should we start
number
with?
one. Doom, black, gum, black, blue, black, black, Rick.
Ringo.
Song.
Take it a ride.
Okay, number two.
Tomorrow Never Knows.
There you go.
Abbey Road.
It's not the beginning. It's
the end.
Yeah. So Ringo is it for me. He's my favorite drummer. He's the reason I play the drums. He and my dad, Bud Bissonette, great drummer, and I went to his gigs. My brother and I both sat in with his band. But Ringo, as I was telling Rick, I got to see the Beatles when I was 7 and my brother was 5. That's another story. But I grew up listening and loving Ringo. And every solo album, every all-star band, he's my favorite drummer and my favorite song drummer.
Okay, so every drummer, I'm going to interrupt you. Every drummer that I've ever interviewed always mentions Ringo.
Good. They're smart.
They're smart. But what about Ringo? About his parts are they're hooks themselves. Those parts you just named, those things is just as important as the song.
That's why I love him so much. And he's got a new masterclass.com class that he invited me to come up with the questions for and get to ask him and get to play with him too. But it's ringostarmasterclass.com, and it's the coolest chance to get insight on him.
Okay, so what's weird about Ringo's drumming?
Well, he's a lefty on a righty kit.
Yep.
And when he did come together, doom, doom, left, right, went up on that 3-time most of us but those songs, if I was in a band with Rick and Rick said, hey, I got this guitar lick, can we sing songs on here, or is that copyright infringement? So I could either
That's
go,
a good question.
That's a good question. I could either go bumped, bopped, which is a great beat, or I could go, I'm going to play something rhythmically melodic with Rick. And then his double stops for those of you who maybe aren't drummers or haven't studied, marching band or classical percussion, on vibes or marimba, when you go both hands unison, Tony Williams, those are kind of flams, but she's got a ticket to ride, double stops, so effortlessly.
Yeah.
Tons of chops, but just never used them in a way that got in the way of the song. So you think of In My Life, there I play one hi-hat per bar.
I know this so cool, right? So different.
Yeah, and I tend to just, and he's just got such discipline and restraint. He always plays for the song.
Yes.
And the lyrics. And
yes.
He's my favorite drummer.
And things like when he plays on Hey Jude, where it goes to the chorus, he doesn't hit the crash, in the first chorus, and he just goes to the ride, and it's so right, like the first chorus, and
yeah.
And so many of the things he does, but when he hits the crashes there, like on Tomorrow Never Knows, with a compression.
Oh, yeah, exploding, right?
Exploding.
And I have been playing double drums with Ringo since 2003, and in the All-Star Band since 2008, and where your speaker is right there, every night I get to just have a bird's eye view of where his bass drum pedal is and his snare drum, and I just want to try to be in that Ringo groove, because his pocket, those songs just... his solo albums, the Beatles albums, everything that he's played on for other artists, it just always feels so right. And that's hard to do.
I did a breakdown at this show that I did in New York a few weeks ago. I did a breakdown of I'm the Walrus. I can't do it on here on YouTube because you can't play the Beatles.
Yeah.
But I just played the rhythm section without the orchestra, and it's so grooving. Oh my God! Lennon's playing the piano, and I mean, just it's between Paul and Ringo, just everything. All four of them together are so grooving.
Band time.
Yes.
The band time. It's not just the drummer's responsibility to hold the time. The Beatles, man, those guys had band time.
Yes.
And then also his, cool wash, that swing. Ringo has such a swing.
Yes.
Such a swing to, like even Strawberry Fields, where you'd think straight eighths, Let me take. A lot of drummers go. Do, 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 do. He's swinging it. Cozy Cole's his favorite drummer, Topsy. Anyway, let me take. That swing.
Yes.
Right?
All my favorite drummers have that.
Yeah, mine too.
All my favorite drummers have that.
I can't tell you. I tell Ringo this all the time. I'm going to tell him next week. You know how many sessions I did in the last 3 weeks since I saw you, where somebody said, do a feel or a fill, kind of like a Ringo thing. Okay, because everybody knows when a songwriter, a producer, an engineer wants that swing and that, oh, that's my favorite Ringo fill. Well, he'd go,
so he's leading with the left on all those, right?
Yeah, he does.
So even on when he's doing Come Together,
left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. We weren't there.
Right.
Nobody videoed it, but
no.
When he plays a 4-piece kit now, so there's no extra tom. But I'm pretty positive that he's told me many, many times that he's going up.
Yeah.
And it sounds kind of like it's going down, but the heads were probably different tunings and the tea towels. But yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if I read this or anything, but is it possible that Ringo never changed his heads throughout the whole Beatles?
I don't know, and I'm not afraid to say those 3 words. Because I don't know.
That would be an interesting thing. That's something I would ask Ringo if I ever interviewed him. Ringo, how often did you change your heads? I mean, did your check change? I mean, is it possible? He had a few drum sets. Is it possible he never changed his heads?
Well, we could talk to a couple of guys. Jeff Chonas, our long-standing drum tech and great friend. Gary Astridge with Ringo Starr, drumkits.com. Don Bennett, great drummer. They're all great drummers and real experts on the kits, you know. And they're the ones that we defer to when there's like a Grammy Museum thing. Ringo, Jeff gets Gary to. Anyway, they really know. They could probably answer that. But
okay, let's talk about drum tuning. We're going to just jump around here. So, a lot of these '60s drummers were influenced by bebop drummers, swing drummers, and they tuned their drums. Guys like John Bonham, they tuned them high like jazz drummers would.
Exactly.
And this is why they had such a unique tone to them, beautiful tone.
When I listened to I was a huge Buddy Rich fan, Gene Krupa fan, Cozy Cole, Joe Morello, Max Roach, Elvin Jones, Tony Williams was one of the best teachers I ever had. But when I listened to an isolated track of Buddy Rich's drum kit and the tuning on that, and John Bonham's drum kit, they're very similar.
Yes.
And Jason Bonham's told me many times how much his dad loved, that Buddy and that sound, 24-inch kick with nothing in it, and the 2 felt strips, and then the white-coated ambassador heads, with Buddy, and tuned the same, and just that crack, gunk, and then boom, boom. Buddy had a second floor, but he only used it for the drink. And Bonham had the timpani and everything, but yeah, that's that. And when you listen to Joe Morello, take 5, the depth that he's got out of that 18 or 20, it's boom. It's really recorded well.
Yeah.
And so, but I'm also a huge fan of. Ringo's the tea towel guy, and if you see his masterclass,
talk about the tea towels and how that. Talk about how that evolved into that, to him using the tea towels.
Yeah, well, the best thing would be to watch him talk about it on masterclass.com, Ringo's school there. But he told me, and he told all of us, that the Beatles were often down in the, cafeteria, whatever you call it, having tea, and there'd be the ladies cleaning the cleaning the teacups and the saucers, and he would take those towels and put them on his drums.
Yeah.
And when you look at Get Back, he did a great version.
You can see
great
that.
Show on Get Back.
Yeah.
His snare and his floor tom. He had the tea towels. And Gary Astridge sent me a set of those tea towels. And so, it's that great sound where they don't have to be boy. It can just be and I love all drum sounds.
Okay, all right. So go back to some other important drum grooves that people should know.
Oh man! So I think Rosanna, Jeff Porcaro, Rosanna, and Africa. Those are 2 great drum grooves to know, and Hold the Line. And I think that Cozy Cole, Topsy is another one. That's probably Ringo's favorite. The floor tom. He loves the floor tom. Should I look at the camera or look at you?
Either one.
Okay.
I'm looking at you.
All right, I'm looking at you. So anyway, Topsy on the floor tom. Joe Morello, take 5. YYZ, you play, everybody knows it's YYZ. Figuring out where John Bonham came in with 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. You keep on knocking 2, 3, you keep on knocking, rock and roll. Second line stuff, Hey Pocky Way with Zigaboo, the Meters, and Stuart Copeland, Walking on the Moon, or Murder by Number.
Oh, it's so good.
Where's one? The one. We could go on and on and on and on. I mean, Walk This Way, Joey Kreamer, Aerosmith, Steve Miller with Gary Malabar.
Yeah.
Dave Grohl playing There Goes My Hero. There goes my... And Taylor was a great friend of mine. He played so many amazing grooves with the Foo Fighters. We could go on forever on songs. Buddy Rich, the things he did on Channel 1 Suite, and his signature hi-hat thing. Number 46, calling the band, they're getting the charts already. But when I got to work with Maynard Ferguson, my brother was already the bass player with Maynard, and he got me in, and we played a lot of Maynard's hits that he did a lot of covers of. Birdland, Chameleon, Theme from Rocky, MacArthur Park, and just those grooves. Harvey Mason, bow, 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 or Mike Thrust with Herbie. I mean, Tony Williams. Okay,
let's talk about how great Tony Williams was.
So I was recording with Joe Satriani and my brother up in the Bay Area, and I got BAM magazine. It's like a big magazine, and on the back, last page, Rick, in this little dinky, Tony Williams accepting private drum
what?
students. That's what I said. Wait,
no,
what?
that's not possible.
That's what I said. So I went, you got to be kidding me. So I called the number.
No way.
And I was going home that night back to Los Angeles. I called the number. Hi, Tony. My name's Gregg Bissonette. I'm a drummer in L.A.
It's not possible.
I would love to take lessons with you. I saw the ad in BAM magazine. I get home late that night from LAX, and I get home and my phone machine's going beep, 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 beep. Maybe Tony called. No, Tony would. Hey, I think he said, yo, Greg, it's Tony Williams. I'm going, oh. He said, hey, man, I'm all filled up with my students up here, but my wife was really good friends with your roommate in L.A., Mark Cranny.
Mark Cranny, yeah.
Does that name sound familiar? Brother to Brother.
Brother to Brother. Come
Chino
on, man.
Vanelli drummer, one of my best friends. And she said she met you through Mark, and you're a good guy. And for the kids out there, Rick, I know, talks about this, but there's a pie, and 50% of that pie is how you play. How well you play, how well your drums are tuned, how great your feel is. And if you read music, I love making charts, I love reading. But the other half of the pie is, are you a good person? Are you somebody that they'll want on a tour bus or a private plane, or you want to hang with? Yeah. And Tony said, my wife, Colleen, said, you're a good guy, so come on up. I was like, you got to be kidding. So I went up and took 1,000,000 lessons with him. We became really great friends. And it was so cool. He wanted to ask me about double bass. He goes, hey, I know with like David Lee Roth and all this stuff, you played a lot of double bass. Yeah, he goes, show me something. I said, I'm thinking I'm in a lesson with Tony Williams. And I said, well, Dennis Chambers does this cool thing where he puts his ball of his heel on his hi-hat, and he puts his left toe on his left bass drum pedal on a double pedal, and he does triplets, so it's left, right, right, left, right, right, and that could be an ostinato for soloing, or Afro-Cuban, or so he goes, cool. And I came back a week later. Colleen says, oh, go on in the back guest house. Tony's playing. I walk in, and he's like, got that lick at warp speed, Rick. He's like, take it down. He's looking at me. I said, how did you get that down so fast? He goes, I practice a lot. There you go, man. I practice.
Okay, what's the greatest thing that Tony Williams ever taught you? Think of one thing that sticks in your mind.
One thing would be like tonight. We're playing here in Atlanta, and I'm going to look out 50 rows back. Tony said, look 50 rows back and just get eye contact with somebody. And if he's going, he's looking at that person and he's going, I want a direct line of communication. I don't want them to hear me doing something that I'm not really intentionally doing. I want them to understand. He He said, it's kind of like going to Burger King. I remember this. He said, you pull up at a Burger King and you go, yeah, I'll have a Whopper with no cheese and extra pickles. And you get it and you pull over to eat it, and it's a Whopper with extra cheese and no pickles. I guess I didn't communicate that enough, So please, could I have a Whopper with no cheese? I'm really not into cheese today, so no cheese, please. Look at that person and try to really be clear with your playing. He said the more that we can be clear with our intentions of what we're doing, that will translate to your audience. I thought that was pretty heavy.
Wow, that's amazing.
Isn't that cool?
That's great. You're out touring here with Victor and Steve.
It's called Basic Streams.
Yes.
30 years ago.
Yep.
We always say 30 years. 30 years ago, we did an album and a video. They did a double two-bass player instructional video, and it was the best-selling one ever.
Remember
that. And so it was really great for educational stuff. But anyway, we did an album, and so I guess a few years ago, right before I guess it was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we did an album. And so it's about to come out, so we're on a tour, and it's Victor Wooten, Steve Bailey, and I, and it's called Basic Streams, and you are coming to the show tonight.
I am coming to the show.
City Winery.
I am coming. Can't wait.
I can't wait. That was a great interview with Vic.
Oh, he's the best.
Oh, my gosh. And they're great. Again, we're talking about great people and great players. They are. I've known Steve for 44 years, like 4 time. My brother Matt and Steve and I all met at North Texas State. It's now University of North Texas. But we became just fast friends then. And we've played on so many different projects together. And Steve's a great bass player. He's the chair of the Berkeley Bass Department, 300 bass players.
Yeah.
And Vic is a in residence, artist in residence there. Well, I forget the title, but and my daughter's going to the Berkeley College of Music in the fall. She's my favorite. We're talking about our daughters and our kids. My daughter's my favorite female vocalist, and my son, they're both great drummers too. My son kicks my butt on all these Machine Gun Kelly Travis Barker songs on the drums. My daughter's Mary and my son's Noah. Hi, Mary and Noah. So anyway, yeah, we love our kids, don't we?
We do. Okay, so let's say you're going to listen to something old. You're thinking, what am I going to listen to today? I'm gonna, something that just you haven't listened to in a long time. What's something that something from when you were growing up, or that you'll put on just for that,
just to make you feel good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm in the 5th grade, and I did not like math.
Okay.
And addition, subtraction, multiplication, that was all cool. But when the whole, long division and the decimal and the remainder, I just started clocking out and looking outside in Detroit. The windows would be open springtime, or the pretty girl in front of me. Anyway, I just wasn't paying attention, and our teacher said, if any of you would like to bring in a radio while we're doing long division, you can. I said, I have a radio. So I brought in my red radio, plugged it in, and I'm going, all right. And I tuned into the local Detroit rock station.
Yeah.
And the song that whenever I'm going, I just want a great feel-good song that I put on was the song that came on the radio right then in the 5th grade. And my hairs on my arm just stood up, and I went, wow, because that guitar tone. And the drum beat, and it was quarters on the hi-hat instead of it was just boom, pop, boom, pop. It was All Right Now by Free, right?
Come on,
and I
man.
hear that, and life is good. It's good anyway, but it's even better.
That is a classic track. It sounds amazing still, all these years later.
And I asked Simon, because he was in Ringo's All-Star Band for a while. It went Jim Keltner and Levon Helm and Ringo, Zach Starkey and Ringo, Simon Kirk and Ringo, Sheila E. and Ringo, and then I got in, and I asked Simon. He came to one of our shows and sat in. I said, that was so cool. You played quarter notes. He says, yeah, because it was like take 45 and my arm was getting sore.
Is that actually true?
Oh, he's told me that. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I'll verify it again in a couple of weeks at the Beacon Theater in New York.
Wow, that is great.
His arm was getting sore. That hi-hat just... And with Paul Rogers' vocals, he throws that upbeat kick in there.
Okay, so this is a question I love to ask people that have done so many records, so many sessions. Nate, give me some of your favorite drum sounds that you've done, records that you've done that you really love the drum sounds.
Maybe my favorite is Andy Johns. I got to work with Andy Johns on The Extremist with Joe Satriani.
Yeah.
And my brother is over here playing bass, cool distorted sound, and Joe's over here playing guitar. And Andy, we had the big room at Ocean Way, which is now called East West on Sunset. And I borrowed my good friend Myron Grombacher's kit. He had a really great natural maple, thin maple kit. And Andy mic'd all the drums. He mic'd the whole room like he did with Zeppelin, And then he put everything, the drums through the PA. And we started with this song. And I just remember hearing the drum sound in my phones. It went, doosh, ba, doosh, ba, taka, doosh, ga, ba, it was Friends, Joe Satriani Friends. And I hear that drum sound today, and I go, because he asked me, what do you want your drums to sound like, mate? That's a bad Andy Johns impression, but I said, how about any of those drum sounds you got with John Bonham? We can do that. All right. And so he cut a cable and put a 421 inside the bass drum, suspended it, and then resoldered the cable, both heads on there, a little bit of foam, but he had his mics all over the room. That's probably my favorite one.
Did he have the toms close mic'd? And
he had a mic top
everything,
and bottom.
Top and bottom, okay.
Mid-range distance, everything. Another one is a great engineer named Phil Caffel. I did a Robin Zander solo album and a song called Reactionary Girl. That was done at the Village in Santa Monica. He just got the greatest, fattest drum sound. Again, that was Myron's maple kit, and now I endorse Dixon. They're a great, great drum company. Thin maple shells.
Tell me about the construction of your drums.
I love maple. I love maple drums, and I love all.
Okay, how
drums.
many ply maple? Talk about it.
6 ply maple with no reinforcing rings, and I just love them to sing. You can always get a drum to be deader, by putting tea towels or moon gel or gaffer tape or paper towel, whatever. But you can't get a dead drum to ring.
That's right.
So I just love a top head and bottom head tuned the same.
Yep.
Doom, boom, and then you can...
And use Remos, right?
Remo coated ambassador heads top and bottom, Dixon, Dixon, thin maple shells, Sabian cymbals, Vic Firth sticks, DW double pedal.
Okay. Hi-hats, what do you use? 14?
14s or 15s or 13. I love all.
Okay.
If you're doing a little bebop gig and it's 13s, great.
But on your normal setup that you would use, what would you play?
The kit that's at Frank's at Woodcliff that people send me files for, that's 14s and 15s.
Okay.
I do have some 16s, but sometimes you want to wait for them to ask for that.
Right.
You don't want to be too...
And then what about your crashes?
I like these Sabian artisan crashes, 2 18s, but I get two that sound a little differently.
Okay.
But I have all kinds of different Sabians for all kinds of different styles. I have a sizzle cymbal, I have jazz cymbals, rock cymbals, different stacked cymbals, splashes. You got to think of it like a toolbox, and just go for what the song... Same with snare drums. You go, well, is this going to be a big, fat... Matt and I got to work with Jeff Lynne and ELO, and I remember tuning my drum the first rehearsal and playing some rim shots, but in the middle sometimes. And Jeff said, are you hitting... I can't do a Jeff Lynne either, but are you hitting in the middle or are you doing rim shots? And I said, I'll do either one. What do you think? Which do you like? He goes, I like in the middle. And when you hit in the middle, and it's really low and tuned down and dead, it's got more... than a rim shot.
Right.
So I'm hitting in the middle. So I'll use that. I'll try to get a Stuart Copeland high sound. Steve Jordan, you interviewed him. Snakes. I just love all drum sounds.
Okay, kick drum. Do you bury the beater? You pull off, or you bury it? You
Thank
pull
you.
off.
Good question. I pull off. If you pack your bass drum and you got a big packing blanket or a pillow in there, you can go bam or bam, and it's going to sound the same. But if you have, like with Andy Johns, with that
resonant head, you have to pull off, or else it just kills the tone.
Or you're farting.
And there's no, you lose all the bottom end too.
Exactly.
When you bury the beater.
Or on that kit, you might even get it like a
double.
Boom,
oh yeah, yes.
Or a so I pull back. Yeah. Thank you. Good.
Now,
question.
why is it that a lot of drummers don't learn to do that?
I don't know why, but Ringo does. He pulls back. He even talks about that in Masterclass. One of my favorite drummers, one of my favorite drum sounds is a guy that every time I watch him, he seems to bury it, but it works, is John J.R. Robinson. Those Michael Jackson albums, Steve Winwood albums, I think he's I think he's burying it. I might be wrong. I was wrong once in the late 60s, but it was a mistake. I wasn't really wrong. We got to hang. We're going to hang tonight.
We're going to hang tonight.
We are.
Greg, it's a pleasure having you. This is amazing.
Thank you,
So
Rick.
go to your... Greg also has a YouTube channel, too.
Oh, I do have a YouTube channel. I wonder if I could do some shameless plugs.
Go ahead, plug away.
So there's my drum school is drumchannel.com and the /Greg. And then I have a new band with my brother and Andy Timmons.
Yes, I
and
love
Wally
Andy.
Minko called the Redcoats.
Yep.
And I got my notes. Why be shameless if you're going to be shameless? I know what I was going to mention. The Ringo Tour we're doing starts May 23rd and goes through June. And then we're also doing one in October. And so that's going to be a blast. And I said gregdrums2@gmail.com if you want me to play in your tracks or do any lessons. Then Victor every night says, do me a favor, tell me the story about when you were playing drums on the end of Finding Nemo. Okay, Vic, I tell the audience. So my brothers and over there, where that upright is, playing upright on Somewhere Beyond the Sea. And I didn't have a DS or a coda on my chart. So I kind of yelled over to Matt, hey, Matt, I don't have a DS or a coda on my chart, do you? And all of a sudden the talkback hits, and the engineer goes, could you please come into the control room? And I bring my chart like, I'm going to show them I don't have a DS or a coda. And Rick Dempsey, my good friend now, who's the chief, I think his title is Senior Vice President of Character Voices at Disney. He says, say what you just said again in that high, raspy voice. Because of talking and him having those ears, I get to do the voice of Winnie the Pooh. And there's a main guy, Jim Cummings, who does the main stuff, and Sterling Holloway was the original guy Walt handpicked in, I think, '68 for Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. But Jim Cummings, who's also a drummer, if there's things he can't make, I get to do like toys or laptops. It's that same kind of voice, like, oh, bother, I need a small smackerel of honey, Rick. Do you have honey in your studio? You're a wonderful musician, and you've got wonderful drums. Anyway, from playing a session, right?
That's amazing.
So I get to do voiceover stuff. I do the Morongo commercials in L.A. and done some other stuff. And you never know. Like, don't turn down gigs, kids, because you might go, well, I'm doing this gig and it's this and that. You never know who you're going to meet.
That's true.
You might just meet somebody that goes, wow, Rick, you'd be perfect for such and such. And then that leads to something else. And people say, wow, you've been working. What do you do for work? And I said, well, I get paid to play the drums, but that's not work. The work is when they lose your luggage and the plane's canceled. Sorry, we don't have a room available yet because check-in's not till 5. But that's the work, right?
That is the work,
Just
right?
playing drums is so much fun. But the Redcoats, that was cool. That was one good thing that came out of being kind of quarantined, is that my brother, while he was out with Elton John, every day he'd be writing songs, and he had all these songs. So we went in and to Frank's and Woodcliff Studio, recorded drums, sent them to Andy Timmons, fantastic guitar player.
Love Andy, he's
and
amazing.
to Wally Minko, fantastic keyboard player. And it's called the Redcoats, and it's kind of like Beatles meets Weather Report with Afro-Cuban stuff in Parliament or something.
Awesome.
But I just can't believe how open you were to me calling you at like 11:30. Hey, Rick, would you want to come to our show? Yeah. Would you want to come for an interview? I've been wanting to be interviewed by you for years. So
Meant to be.
meant to be. You are amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Billy.